Thank you, Feng, for inviting me to speak at the social computing track of the Web Intelligence Conference and giving me the opportunity to share our work on understanding the role of online social networks in spreading narratives. Attending the conference in person would be so much better. Nevertheless, I'm very glad to be here. In the age of social media, we are living in a hyper-connected world, meaning information travels faster than ever before. Narratives travel at lightning speed, sometimes even frightening, that can transform individuals to groups and groups to mobs. Bots and trolls play a significant role in this process. Our work helps understanding the role of online social networks in spreading narratives, to develop research infrastructure, to strengthen socio-cognitive security. At my research center, we are developing social computation models and social cyber forensic methodologies to advance our understanding of online collective action, organization, coordination, and mobilization through online networks, influence campaigns, misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda campaigns that are conducted in the cyber world with real world implications. In this talk, I will discuss some of these efforts and their implications to policy and decision making. Briefly about us, Cosmos stands for Collaboratorium for Social Media and Online Behavioral Studies, which is a statewide research center headquartered in Arkansas. Currently, we have 42 members from various parts of the world, offering a multinational perspective to the problems we face today. I'm leading several interdisciplinary research projects that study the full spectrum of online behaviors, broadly categorized as the good, the bad, and the ugly, that manifest on the social media. Social media is largely considered as a positive vehicle of change. However, social media data can be leveraged in different malicious activities also. We have seen social media data that can be leveraged for public good as well. For example, urban planning, better health policies, and so on. Social media is powered in leading socio-political transformation of authoritarian regimes to democratic systems, raise awareness and solidarity, whether it is the Me Too movement or gender bias laws and practice in Saudi Arabia. However, in recent years, we've also seen it giving rise to the so-called deviant mobs or weaponization of information, rise of radical and extremist groups, propaganda, whether it is state and non-state actors, misinformation, fake news, and more. In this talk, I'll share highlights from the work we are doing at Cosmos to study the role of social media in campaigns and movements and deviant behaviors on the internet. We adopt a multidisciplinary setting, intersection of computational and information science, social science, communication science disciplines. Being theoretically grounded allows our approaches to be explainable, interpretable, and transparent. We ensure that data privacy is at the core of our methods. We are working on several National Science Foundation and Department of Defense funded projects on advancing our understanding of cyber campaigns from a collective action perspective. We study the role of social media in mobilizing support for cyber campaigns and social movements, such as Saudi women's campaigns to raise awareness about inequitable laws and practices, autism awareness campaigns, social movements to raise awareness for racial discrimination, social movements for socio-political transformation from authoritarian to democratic regimes. We have developed capabilities to track campaigns in real time and assess their effectiveness. Visual analytics are fundamental to discovering intricate relations, trends, and generate hypotheses. These approaches form the basis of our studies examining deviant behaviors as discussed in the following slides. We are all aware of how social media has been exploited by malicious and adversarial actors. Several DoD multi-year grants support our studies on examining how social media is used for weaponizing narratives, manipulating discourse through misinformation or disinformation campaigns, recruitment, and radicalization. We have developed social media analytical tools, and we are working with public affairs officers, defense analysts, information operations officers, psychological operations officers, social media analysts from NATO, US Defense, European Defense, Australian Defense, among other international and US-based agencies. Our ongoing efforts include monitoring influence operations during NATO exercises, monitoring terrorist, domestic, and violent extremist and black hat hackers campaigns for recruitment, radicalization, and raising funds, monitoring coordinated inauthentic behaviors during elections, monitoring influence campaigns in the Indo-Pacific region with our regional partners, and helping policymakers raise awareness about COVID-19 misinformation campaigns and scams to combat the misinfodemic. These deviant groups deploy various tactics to achieve their goals. Throughout our numerous studies of influence operations, we have documented many of these tactics, also called computational propaganda tactics. So what is cross-platform orchestration? If we consider blogs and video-based blogs or blogs as payload, where narratives are framed, then Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, Telegram, etc. are the delivery mechanisms. To strengthen the foundations of socio-cognitive security apparatus, it is critical to understand this strategic orchestration of social media platforms so that we can effectively combat multi-platform influence operations. Deviant groups are known to be early adopters of emerging technologies, such as the audio-based app called Clubhouse, Twitter's Spaces, or video-based platforms called Parler, Rumble, BitChute, etc. They extract every bit of recruitment and propaganda out of it before it gets taken away. Other widely used tactics include community-based and coordinated narrative amplification, whether it is using a flash mob style coordination, communities of bloggers, coordinated clickbait, also known as information laundering tactic, or more recently, coordinated deepfakes. We will see an instance of this in the next slide. All these tactics attempt to manipulate social media platforms' search and recommendation algorithms by exploiting their inherent bias towards virality. Bots, botnets, and largely machine-driven communication or MADCOMs play a significant role in this process. We can track an actor's influence across social media platforms using social cyber forensics by revealing multi-platform information conduits to track narrative flows, identify key influencers, and their reach across platforms. Social cyber forensics allow detection of coordinated inauthentic behaviors for content amplification or virality. This tactic is deployed to manipulate search engines. This effort was quite successful during 2019 Canadian federal elections, where rebel media groups set up at least 291 deepfake-style websites to amplify anti-Trudeau narratives. Findings are published in NATO's STRATCOM journal, our book on social cyber forensics, and Journal of Future Conflict with support from Royal Military College of Canada, Canadian Special Operations Forces Command, CANSOFCOM, and Defense Research and Development Canada. Cross-media orchestration and inorganic content engagement measures led anti-NATO narratives jump up the chart for top watched videos on YouTube. Here we see influencers pushing anti-NATO propaganda across platforms. This shows how online social networks can be manipulated to spread certain narratives. This is the new information warfare, or highly asymmetric, also known as the algorithmic warfare. That finding was published in NATO's Science for Peace and Security conference. Influence campaigns are becoming increasingly coordinated, be it blogs, clickbaits, YouTube, or Twitter. Decision makers need timely information to assess attack impact and develop effective combat strategy. We identify key network structures and assess power of influence campaigns in real time, leveraging operations research, social network analysis, and collective action theory. In one of the projects where we worked with the European Command, we looked at the pro-Russian influence campaign conducted during the annexation of Crimea and Euro-Maidan protests in Ukraine. We examined networks of blogs about Russia-Ukraine conflict containing 18,000 blog posts from 26 blogs. I found a lot of inorganic activity disseminating pro-Russian narratives to fabricate a perception that everything is okay in Ukraine and the conflict is largely manufactured by the West or the US. Our computational models revealed the triad of Graham Phillips, a well-known blogger, Russian news agency ITAR-TASS, and Voice of Russia as a more influential coordinating structure for information dissemination, even more than RT. We shared this with the European Command. At the time we shared our findings with the EUCOM, we did not know that Graham Phillips was banned from Ukraine. Our contacts at EUCOM were surprised by the network analysis we produced that provided evidence of his strong ties to Russian state media. Graham Phillips was a master in influence operations. He was very persuasive. He is a British national contracted by a stringer by the Russian Times. He has produced numerous videos, blogs, and stories in around Eastern Ukraine. He posted his YouTube videos and blog. He speaks and writes in Russian and English in his reports. Graham Phillips reported the 2014 Ukraine crisis and became a growing star on Kremlin owned media. He set out to investigate in a way that made him a cult micro celebrity during the crisis by interviewing angry people on the street for 90 seconds at a time, and he became an instant celebrity. When he was banned from Ukraine, he did not go back to England. In fact, he continues to blog from Russia. In another study, we examined how online social networks allow terrorists like ISIS to radicalize and recruit. Very similar network structures, such as the hierarchical organizations, were identified in black hat hacker communities who use social media networks to recruit, plan attacks, strategize, in almost like a flash mob style coordination pattern. They conducted the act and dispersed into the anonymity of the internet. Such deviant groups pose threat to national security, homeland security, and also critical infrastructures. 5 of the top 10 ISIS Twitter accounts were suspended, but that did not affect their social media operations. In fact, their network grew twice as fast. This implies suspensions are not necessary, but not sufficient. However, such malicious actors are highly sophisticated in using digital technologies, as evident from their use of proxy servers for location spoofing. For instance, here we notice that some of the prominent ISIS recruiters spoofed their locations as tweeting from Greenland and other places that were known to be false. These findings were shared with US intelligence agencies such as NSA, National Geospatial Intelligence Agencies. To identify key network groups that coordinate nefarious acts, we developed a model grounded in mathematical definitions of collective action theory. This mathematical representation of the model helps explainability and in turn interpretability. This model is also more accurate compared to the state-of-the-art approaches. As shown in the results on the right, the results show that by removing key groups from an ISIS recruitment campaign network, how the campaign coordination efforts almost disintegrate. The research is published in the Journal of Information Processing and Management and Central European Journal of Operations Research. Coordinated campaigns or coordinated narrative amplification is getting more sophisticated with AI and particularly social parts. Humans and machines team up to conduct these highly sophisticated coordinated campaigns. Bots are prevalent in amplifying the narratives. These are called the machine-driven communications or MADCOMs for short. Here we show the timeline of botnet evolution from bots to botnets to social bots, where we see mutual reciprocity. In the first instance, I follow you, you follow me, I follow you behaviors. Very naive bots. Coordination was detected in social network. There is no mutual reciprocity in the second instance. Coordination was detected only after developing the information or the resource network, who shares whom. Organizational hierarchy is visible in the third instance or more advanced version, where core bots and peripheral bots adopt their specific roles, whether they're generating content or simply amplifying or retweeting content from the generator or core bots. These findings are published in NATO's Defense Stratcom Journal and by the US Army University Press in a 7-book volume titled Large-Scale Combat Operations. In the book titled Information Operations, Perceptions or Reality. It is important to understand and model the coordination tactic of bot accounts on social media platforms for developing effective countering strategies. While these botnets could disseminate humorous information like sharks swimming on freeways during hurricanes, they're also known to disrupt disaster relief operations for minority communities by suggesting that migrants are required to show formal documentation of their status before seeking help in storm shelters. In another example, US intelligence agencies released the Russian IRA botnet dataset that played a significant role in polarizing online discourse during the 2016 US federal elections by amplifying hate speech in social media platforms. A decision tree-based model was developed to identify coordinating botnets. The IRA dataset depicted on the top left corner was used to evaluate the model. The decision tree shown on the right hand side of the slide. Each branch of the tree helps in making the decision to assess a botnet's coordination, thereby making the decisions explainable and interpretable. This study is published in the Social Computing and Behavioral Modeling Conference. Machine-driven communications play a significant role in exploiting social media platform vulnerability, particularly their search and recommendation bias. But what is platform vulnerability and bias? AI-based recommendation algorithms predict our shopping behaviors, books and articles to read, videos to watch, but these algorithms often lack transparency. Recommendation algorithms learn from behavior data and perpetuate underlying bias in its recommendation. For instance, YouTube's recommendation algorithm is known to push its viewers down the conspiratorial rabbit hole by suggesting related videos. In another instance, on Facebook, ads to recruit delivery drivers for Domino's Pizza Inc. were disproportionately shown to men, while women were more likely to receive notices in recruiting shoppers for grocery delivery services like Instacart. Platform bias is known to be exploited by disinformation agents. They exploit the fact that social media platforms reward virality over veracity. For example, in the study, a syndicate of YouTube channels is set up to push anti-US and anti-West narratives in the Indo-Pacific region. This activity is aided by purchased views, likes, and commenter mobs on YouTube, as directed via coordinated inauthentic behavior detection models. These efforts have been largely successful in manipulating YouTube search and recommendation algorithms. Videos from these channel syndicates show up at the top when we search for South China Sea. The research shown here examines influence campaigns in the Indo-Pacific region and is funded in part by the Australian Defence Science and Technology Organization under the Strategic Policy Grants Program in collaboration with the University of Sydney. It is therefore very important to develop methods to detect and measure bias in algorithms. In the study presented here, we analyzed 8 different contexts, multilingual and multicultural, on YouTube to study bias in its recommendation system. Several hundreds of thousands of recommendations were systematically analyzed. Topic drift and decrease in relevance was observed. More strikingly, top recommended videos were removed weeks or months after YouTube had recommended these. Violation of platform terms and services was stated as the reason for content removal. This study is published in the European Conference on Information Retrieval's special track on bias and complex networks conference this year. Influence campaigns don't just stay on the cyber world. They sometimes impact the real world. For example, flash stocks, the GameStop stock price frenzy caused by the Redditors, the gas price surge after Colonial Pipelines ransomware attack, where social media was abuzz with conspiracy theories driving up the gas prices, US Capitol riots on Jan 6th, which is a prime example of such horrific events. Parler, a video-based social media platform, was largely used to coordinate and mobilize support for this violent protest. We use a novel and award-winning video barcode-based approach to study terabytes of multimedia data to examine coordination and mobilization campaigns of domestic and violent extremist groups. Over 70 terabytes of data with a variety of content, text, URLs, images, video, network, engagement scores, and other metadata was analyzed. Spike on January 6th illustrates an intensive use of the platform during the violent protest. Historically, the content on Parler is skewed towards images, but on January 6th, more textual content was shared, indicating information sharing and communication behaviors. Content was analyzed and echo chambers were identified as shown in the slides coming next. Coordination was observed from the messages exchanged among users. Dense communities were identified as shown in the network diagram on the right. Clearly, the mobs were following the words of the political leaders. Content communities on this slide are showing the narratives that were disseminating in Parler, along with links to other alternate fringe platforms, essentially building an echo chamber. Some more content communities pointing to Rumble, InfoWars, and other fringe websites. Here is another worldwide example where misinformation narratives and conspiracy theories in the cyber world have real-world impact. I'm subscribed to the Arkansas Attorney General's Office's newsletter. We saw COVID-19 misinformation scam on the rise last year, and we started a website to identify COVID-19 misinformation and scams and shed light on those scams before innocent people fall prey. The website helped raise awareness, encourage people to report scams, analyze misinfo narratives, and also track progress of the effort, which was very critical. Over 1 billion data points worldwide, including tweets, YouTube, videos, blogs, etc., were analyzed that support the research efforts that I'm going to talk about in the next few slides. This website and the data repository is publicly available as well as published in the Journal of Social Networks and Mining this year. It is simply not adequate to show and debunk the misinformation that is out there, because that whack-a-mole approach is not effective for policymaking. So as an information scientist, our goal was to be able to predict what is coming next before it hits us. It turns out that conspiracies and misinformation narratives have a recurring pattern. We used that finding and developed computational techniques to identify these recurring patterns, such as vaccine hesitancy, alternate medicines, conspiracy theories, etc., so that we can help proactive communication strategies and policy making to detect and mitigate emerging cyber social threats. Initially, conspiracies and misinformation surrounding the origins of virus were circulating, followed by vaccines and treatments for COVID-19 with absolutely zero scientific evidence. While misinformation conspiracies such as Bill Gates created the virus, 5G and the virus, pandemic is a government scam, also tagged as the plandemic, are more persistent. More recently, emerging narratives are in fact related to vaccines, such as the ones that mentions COVID vaccines have chips in them and they are magnetic so that the government can track its citizens. Vaccines are not halal, that is disproportionately affecting Muslim populations. Vaccines contain genes of dead fetuses of cows affecting Hindu populations. Vaccines contain aborted cell tissues affecting white evangelicals. This research was awarded the best paper at the International Conference on Human and Social Analytics this year. Previous study identifies misinformation themes going on in the digital world, but the question is, can we characterize an online misinformation campaign? This study helps us map a campaign's life cycle. That is, when does it enter its accelerating phase and when it goes into decelerating phase. This analysis shows the speed of adoption of misinformation, conspiracy theories versus legitimate or corrective information. Three key findings are as follows. Key finding one, misinformation spreads way faster than legitimate or corrective information. COVID-19 is no different. Key finding two, individuals can be categorized into one of the bins with respect to their adoption of the misinformation. There is innovators, early adopters, early majority, late adopters. Policymakers can take advantage of this analysis, tailor counter messaging campaigns specifically for each category of individuals. Key finding three, misinformation diffusion follows an S-shaped function with an accelerating and a decelerating phase. Policymakers can take corrective measures early on during the accelerating phase and make sure that the misinformation narratives quickly enter their decelerating phase. Similarly, appropriate measures can be taken to speed up the adoption of a corrective information campaign during its accelerating phase. Next important step is to know which individuals are more susceptible to misinformation so that we can inoculate these individuals, so to speak. In this study, we think about misinformation like an epidemic. So we develop an epidemiological model to categorize people as susceptible, exposed, infected, and skeptic. The goal is to bring folks from susceptible, exposed, and infected categories to the skeptic category. The model outperforms other epidemiological models, yielding high accuracy with error rates between 3 and 5% as shown here for lockdown and face mask related misinformation campaigns. Another adverse consequence of misinformation is the toxicity that it gives rise to. We have observed much higher levels of toxicity in COVID-19 misinformation communities. Numerous studies have shown that the adverse effects of hate speech on our cognitive and physiological health, particularly adding stress. Networks not only enable diffusion of narratives, but also the diffusion of other behaviors such as toxicity. First, in this study, we show that COVID-19 discourse was twice as toxic than the general discourse on YouTube. This analysis further shows spread of toxicity in YouTube commented networks. That is, toxicity is contagious. Removing centrally located toxic nodes show improvement in the health of the networks and online discourse. The study identified toxic communities or toxic echo chambers. Social media platforms can take this finding to reduce toxicity, hate speech, and polarization, and begin healing our fractured communities. For instance, Facebook alone spends $400 million every year to manage toxicity on their platform. This work was conducted with LinkedIn and Arkansas Office of the Attorney General in an attempt to bridge science, society, and policy through technology and innovation. This study also demonstrates the value of the industry, government, and university partnership. More such partnerships are needed to combat this critical problem. In another study, we tracked COVID-19 misinformation coming from conspiracy groups during COVID-19. The study shown here helped us see how conspiracy theory and fringe groups, such as the QAnon, called for kidnapping of Michigan's governor using social media platforms such as Parler, BitChute, Rumble, to push back against the lockdown measures. Reported this to Army Research Office. FBI later unraveled the plot to kidnap the governor. I did get a call from the FBI Little Rock field office to share findings from our research with them. We are developing indicators to recognize, characterize, and measure signals corresponding to communication and coordination of cyber and of physical events. Possible use case scenarios for this work include helping DoD enforce protection around military bases or operation security, for example, during NATO exercises and such. The burning question from our work in the last slide was, how come the conspiracy theory groups are so good at coordinating? So we wanted to study their coordination strategies. In this study, we did exactly that. And what we found was that these groups have a very strong core of mobilizers, and not just one, but many such focal structures. So all that math on the left has led us to that finding, which is not surprising because complex social processes require a core group of mobilizers than a single individual. We developed an operation research-based multi-criteria optimization formulation grounded in the mathematical constructs of the collective action theory. The developed model was evaluated on a YouTube user network that engaged in COVID-19 conspiracies depicted in the graph with red and green nodes. Red nodes are users and green nodes are videos that pushed those conspiracy theories. The model allows us to identify key groups of misinformation spreaders, and with the help of multi-optimization criteria, we can rank various spreaders by their effectiveness based on their network centrality, as shown in the graphic in the bottom right corner. The model is capable in explaining why certain spreaders are more effective than the others. The mathematical representation of the model helps explainability and interpretability. This finding is equally helpful for social media platforms like YouTube, who can take action against such spreaders, as well as for policymakers who can shape corrective messaging against misinformation and prioritize resources during crisis, thus serving the mission of bridging science and society through technology. This research is published in the Central European Journal of Operations Research this year. We have developed a data collection framework that ingests over 300 gigabytes of data in all forms and shapes and serve our insatiable and data-hungry models. Most of the research that you have seen here in the slides has used this data collection framework. This framework is also published in IEEE workshop on parallel and distributed processing for computational social systems. We have different data sets and different data points for these various studies listed on the left of the screen. And these are indexed in our databases and publicly available through our tools that I'm going to show next. We have data from various platforms, including blogs, Twitter, YouTube, and various alternate platforms. And the statistics shown on the right give you an idea of how many attributes we are collecting on a daily basis, as well as how much data we already collected on various contexts on the left. All the solutions presented here are thoroughly researched, developed, evaluated, and published in over 250 international journals and conferences, including NATO, Science for Peace and Security, Defense Stratcom Journal, Journal on Baltic Security, US Army Navy Press, and many others. Our innovations have won 15 Best Paper Awards. Basic and some advanced capabilities already exist in our tools shown on the screen, and there is a clear transition path for advanced solutions. Our tools are selected by the US Department of State, Global Engagement Centers, Go-to-Tech program to fight foreign-based propaganda. We have conducted training for public affairs officers, info ops, PsyOps officers from NATO member nations at Stratcom COE, US Cyber Command, US Marine Information Groups. Recently, our research was recognized as top 10 solutions in the 2021 NATO Innovation Hub Challenge on the invisible threat countering cognitive warfare from 132 teams across the 30 NATO member nations. We have prepared a short intro video of these capabilities, which I'm going to play next. Let's watch.
Blog Trackers is a social computational tool that can track, monitor, and understand blogs, bloggers, and real-time world events. Using award-winning content analysis and network analysis capabilities, users can identify key influencer blogospheres. Blog Trackers can help identify leading topics of discussion and information actors disseminating them. Identify influential bloggers, assess tones, sentiments, opinions, extract entities, and analyze their networks. Blog Trackers is built to review a user's behavior in the blogosphere, has an easy-to-use interface, and provides a dashboard for analytics. A new plugin for Blog Trackers is also available for Chrome, Firefox, and Edge. What can you do with Blog Trackers? Blog Trackers is designated to provide an analyst with the necessary tools to analyze blogs and extract actionable insights. Users can view sentiment trends and conduct psycholinguistic analysis, network analysis, use cross-media analytics to study information flow, study posting patterns, identify keyword trends, and use influence analysis to identify influencers in the blogosphere. Blog Trackers was developed by Cosmos and is funded by the National Science Foundation, Office of Naval Research, Air Force Research Laboratory, Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, Army Research Office, and Department of Homeland Security. Hello, today I'm going to show you all about YouTube Tracker and what you can do from viewing videos from a keyword to getting some basic information off those videos, all the way to looking at a couple trackers that we have that are public trackers and getting some analytics off of that, as well as some features that are going to be coming to YouTube Trackers. So I'm in the YouTube Trackers, which is vtracker.host.ulr.edu. And on the homepage, you're going to just see some general information about what you're going to be able to do with YouTube Tracker. But the first thing you're going to need to do is log in. You can do that by clicking Start Tracking or the Login button up at the top on the navigation. If you don't have an account, you can register now for a new account. I already have an account, so I'm going to log in with my account. Once you're logged in, it's going to take you to the home page where you can search your YouTube videos. To start with, it's just going to give me some videos here that I can search through. But if you're wanting to actually drill down to a specific keyword, you're going to put that in the search box. So today I want to search COVID. I'm going to hit enter. And what this is going to do is going to pull all those videos that are in YouTube that have that specific keyword. Now I can narrow down these results here if I want to narrow them down. Over here by the sort by, there is a drop-down menu. And so I can actually go and see relevance today, this week. So there's different things that I can pick. So if I want to know what was posted today, I can actually click today. And this is just going to pull all those videos that have the term COVID for today. You can go over and switch your view to a list view, or you can do a grid view. So now as you go through the videos, if you scroll, you can hover over a video and it's going to tell you how many views that video has, how many likes, dislikes, and comments. You can also see how long the video is here at the bottom corner and click the video and watch it in our actual application without going to YouTube. So you can do everything you need to do right here from YouTube Trackers. So you can add videos to trackers or create a new tracker. Please note, we are still working on this feature. So we've actually, when you create an account, we have a couple public trackers that you're going to be able to see. So if you went ahead and added it to an existing tracker in your account, or if you created a new one, you're not going to see any data or information on that. But that is a feature that we are currently working on. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to take you to those trackers that we have that you would be able to use. So my account has many trackers because I'm in the Cosmos account, but you're going to see there's two in particular here that say public, COVID keywords and COVID disinfo. These two trackers are public and you'll be able to view these if you have your own account. The first one I want to show you is COVID disinfo. So this particular tracker has 63,275 videos, and 2 channels. And if I click this tracker, it's going to take you to the tracker information page for this particular tracker. And as you scroll, you'll see all the videos that are in the tracker if you want to know what's in here. But you're going to see something particular here. There's a very colorful tracker, and each one has different colors. This is actually a generated barcode from the video, and this is to have an instant view of the entire video. A feature that is going to be coming in the future for this is where you can compare them and detect similarity between videos. So right now we're just displaying the barcode, but note this is going to have more functionality in the future. If I go back to the trackers and I go down to analytics, that's going to bring me up to the dashboard for this tracker. And note, currently we only have data for this particular tracker from May 5th, 2020, all the way to May 30th, 2020. And it's going to give me information about how many videos, channels, views, subscribers, likes, dislikes, and comments. I can say I want to see daily, and that's going to give me this posting frequency for the daily posts that we have. I can do weekly, same thing. If I hover, it's going to.
All right, I'll pause the video here and in the interest of time, proceed. But these videos are publicly available on our website, and I'm going to show the link in the next slide. But these tools are always evolving. We are adding new features. So if you're interested, let me know. You can just go to the website, sign up, or again, just send me an email. We'll get you hooked up with this tool. These are publicly available, completely free. So these and also other in-depth case study videos are available on our websites that are listed here for block trackers, weed tracker, COVID-19 misinfo tracker, and so on. So I would like to thank Feng for this opportunity to share our work. I also like to acknowledge the funding that we have received from US Defense and the National Science Foundation that have made these innovations and research possible. With that, I look forward to answering your questions. And again, thank you all for your time and listening to my talk.